Welcome. It's Doug Sesserman in my virtual office in New York City. It's noon Eastern time, and it's 7 p.m. in Israel. And today's #Webinar Wednesday, live from Israel, Ben-Gurion briefing, features a terrific panel to talk about how the global pandemic of the coronavirus has impacted Israel, student life in Israel, and BGU in particular in terms of the pressures facing students for the coming year. We have a great panel with Jeff Kay, Mai Tannen, and Topazz Werner. But before starting the panel discussion, I just wanted to take a moment. It's Topazs in Israel, which is Israel's Valentine's Day. It's sort of a minor holiday on the Jewish calendar, but important to remember. So just wish everybody and your loved ones a happy Tu B'Av. And also this is an important day to have compassion and to think about others as well. In Judaism, we call this Rachmanis. Yesterday, there was a terrible blast in Beirut in the Middle East region, over 100 people dead, thousands injured, more than 300,000 homeless. I think this is a good day for us to just think about our neighbors in Lebanon. With that, we are going to begin this webinar with a short video from the president of Ben-Gurion University, Danny Shamovitz.
Hello. There's no doubt that these past 4 months, we've seen our world turned upside down. But I want to tell you about what's keeping me awake at night now. What's worrying me more than anything else is the future of Israel, and that comes in to the future of our young people. The financial crisis that's been caused by the coronavirus means that many of our students do not have the confidence that they will be able to take the time off to pursue higher education. And don't forget that our students are also older, over the age of 20, many of them after the army, independent in their lives. This potential loss of students, or of students dropping out, can have insurmountable effects on our society and on our worlds. Number one and number two in the health ministry of Israel, the ones fighting the corona crisis, are graduates of Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. The chief scientific officer of the company in Boston that's perhaps developed the first vaccine for coronavirus is a graduate of Ben-Gurion University. I want to be positive. I want to assure that every student who wants to prove themselves, every student who thinks they have the ability, shall come to Ben-Gurion University and can realize his potential. I need you to partner with me. I need you to be my partner in ensuring that any student who wants to either continue studying or to start his education this year at Ben-Gurion University can do that. I'm sure that you'll agree that we have a responsibility to make sure that no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. It's quite a compelling video from Danny. So the situation is multifaceted, and we're going to get into that discussion today with our panelists. For our participants, just to remind everyone, when you want to ask a question, you just click on the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom. I'll be able to read those questions, and then we'll interact with our panelists while they're presenting, and then also at the end. This webinar is scheduled for an hour, and I think it's time to get going. The situation in Israel is quite severe, very high unemployment rate, close to 25%. Jeff will get into more of the details. We believe that more than 1 in 5 students are at risk in Israel from either beginning their education or continuing it, and those numbers are even greater at Ben-Gurion University for particular reasons. So let's start with Jeff Kay. Jeff Kay, who's a good friend and a dear partner in this work together, is the Vice President for Public Affairs and Resource Development at Ben-Gurion University. Jeff, as you can tell from his wonderful accent, made Aliyah from Scotland in 1981. and has since then established himself as one of the true leaders in Israel's nonprofit sector. During the past 25 years, his work has focused on securing significant philanthropic contributions, building partnerships, and conducting successful negotiations with the Israeli government, ministries of finance, defense, housing, education, the Prime Minister's office itself, the IDF, and others. For more than a decade, Jeff served as the Director General for Resource Development and Public Affairs at the Jewish Agency for Israel. We worked together there for a long time. Before joining BGU, he served as the Executive Vice President, Director General of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. He is the co-founder of the Israeli Academy of Philanthropy, where he's taught dozens of nonprofit professionals in Israel about capacity building, effective philanthropy, and sustainable fundraising development. Jeff has an undergraduate degree in psychology from the Strathclyde University in Scotland. He received his teaching certificate from David Yellin College in Jerusalem and a diploma in education administration from the Hebrew University. He also just completed and is now the author of his first book, Gathering Grains of Sand, soon to be available everywhere if Geffen Publishing does their job. Jeff, let's start with you. You've been at BGU not that long, a little over a year, correct?
Yeah, the truth is, first of all, good to see you. And we both got these virtual backgrounds that should be connecting. We should be breaking bread in Israel at the moment. Unfortunately, fate has separated us in reality for a while. So let's come back here quickly, and I'll try and get to the US. But
absolutely. Yeah, one thing I wanted you to start with is just a little bit before we get into the pandemic and obviously its effect, but you have a great career. You know, what drew you in the first place to Ben-Gurion University? And then tell us about what it's been like for the first year on the job and then the situation with COVID.
Yeah, so first of all, as you were reading the bio, and I always feel like my mother should be there because she's probably the only one who really cares. But as you were reading, I'm thinking, and I left the best for last because for me this is really and everything I've done has been fantastic and a wonderful privilege. But this really is the pinnacle of my career in terms of where I'm at. And there's nothing more indicative of what we've done in the last few months, and my partnership with you, as you pointed, goes many years back, and with many of the people on the call. Tony, I think probably more than anybody else, I work very closely, and I don't think I need to sing praises to this audience about how incredible Tony is. But BGU is an incredible place, and the truth is, I fell in love with BGU through my daughter, who was attending the university. And that's where she met her husband, Elchanan, and they've now got a baby. So I've got a BGU grandchild, and it took me a while to get it. I could not understand how this young woman who had grown up essentially in Jerusalem, spent a few years in Detroit, had fallen in love not just with Elchanan but with BGU. And but once I got and I started walking the corridors and got to meet students like Mai and Topazs and many others and our incredible faculty, I got it and I get it. And I absolutely am so fortunate to have been given this opportunity.
So not long into your tenure, really, the world changed, and some of it is changing certainly now, but also for the longer term in many respects. Tell us about COVID, the university's initial reactions, the research effort, but then let's shift to the impact on the students.
Right. So thanks, Doug. Well, first of all, yeah, you're right. When we all last met in Palo Alto in February, none of us really knew what was happening. But yet, we all knew that if something unexpected was around the corner, we had the leadership in Danny Shalmovitz, Professor Shalmovitz, to respond correctly, and that's exactly what happened. He brought me to the university, and I was part of his vision from before we really understood where we were going, and the ability to understand what's happening, fully interpret the implications for the university and respond appropriately and quickly is really due to his leadership, and we were all incredibly willing to follow. And so the first thing, there were, I would say, two phases into this. First was, how do the university itself cope with what is this developing crisis? And I think we did very well, not only in terms of online classes, but also in just preparing the campus itself. And then very quickly we went into the phase of what we call, what you and I have talked about, which is the kind of the altruistic phase, which is the whole world is hurting. How does Ben-Gurion University reach out to its nearby community, its further community, and help? It's not about us, it's about the world. And that task force that I think everybody in this call has heard of was incredibly quick and agile, and there were some very, very generous donors who gave us the ability to tell our researchers, go and deal with COVID in whichever way. It could be in prevention, it could be in detection, it could be in community involvement, and I think we did very, very well. And I would say, although I'm not necessarily competitive in nature, ahead of the curve. We were ahead of some of the other universities in Israel, some of them who have been around for double the amount of time that Ben-Gurion has been around. And then we didn't rest in our laurels, because all of us, you, me, Danny, and the others, we were all thinking about, okay, what is the impact going to be on our university? And the first thing that was on our radar screen were our students. And we said, we have kind of all the ambitions of the world. We want to build buildings, and we want to expand, and we want to help bring the IDF and develop some of the incredible things that are in our plans and the strategic plan. But if we don't have our students, we have absolutely nothing. BGU is not BGU without our students. And then we said, we're going to put temporarily on the shelf some of these longer, more ambitious plans of our future, our next 50 years. And we're not going to beat our chest about the fact that we had to cancel our celebrations that were scheduled for May. We're going to focus all of our efforts on our students. And I think Danny said it in that video, we will not leave a single student behind. Any student anywhere in the country, whether they live in Beersheba or in the Negev or in the north, who is qualified to be a student at Ben-Gurion University, or who is already a student and has financial difficulties, we will make sure that they have what they need to continue studying. And that's a great declaration to make, but you can't make a declaration unless you have a very strong group of supporters throughout the world who will deliver with you. And I think this last couple of months has been that. It's been all of us together saying, how do we fulfill that promise of not leaving any students behind? So again, Danny's leadership, Danny's absolute conviction, and our ability to implement these plans, I think, should make us all very proud. The work is not done yet, as we all know. We still have quite a bit to go in our campaign, but students are already receiving aid. I spoke to the Dean of Students just a couple of hours ago. The applications are coming in. The students are already getting information about approval of their financial requests. And we're going to keep going until we make sure that every single need is addressed.
So thank you. So let's talk a little bit about what makes BGU different. Then we'll turn it over to our student panelists. Our audience is predominantly American, although today we're joined by people from Canada and also a few from Israel. So thank you for joining this international audience of the #Webinar Wednesday live from Israel Ben-Gurion briefing. But help Jeff, the audience, understand how going to university in Israel is different than the States. Danny mentioned students are older, there's compulsory service, people go straight from high school to the military and then to university, and then help the audience understand how going to school at BGU is different financially, et cetera, from the other universities.
Right. So we have this incredible privilege to be the only non-commuter university in Israel. You don't, for the most part, you don't get up in the morning and ride your bike to BGU. You have to make a decision to move to Beersheba or to our Sde Boker or our Eilat campuses and live there. And everybody's going to meet Topazs and Mai in a second. These are students who made that decision, like my daughter, to go to BGU, which means you you get up one day, you travel down to Beersheba, you look for dorms or rent an apartment, and so that's our incredible advantage, which allows our campus to be such an incredibly wonderful place to be. But that brings with it a price, and the price is that you can't live at home. You have to be paying rent, and you have to be paying for food, and all of the things that all of our students are dealing with, which is why it's so important for us to build more dorms so that there's affordable housing for our students. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is our natural catchment area, which is certainly students who live in Beersheba, but then in all of the towns and villages surrounding Beersheba, who are generally development towns who were created in Israel with a goal of integrating new immigrants from the 50s and 60s, and to a certain extent, most of them remain economically disadvantaged, and therefore the students are coming from there who have a much more difficult time financially, plus our very special responsibility to the Bedouin community around us in the Negev. And so for our Jewish Israeli students, it's a struggle, and for our Bedouin Israeli students, a much greater struggle financially and otherwise. So that gives us on our shoulders this incredible responsibility to be there for our students. And I've told you already that last week I met with a group of VPs of other universities in Israel who are all incredible institutions, all doing their job, but none of them have the same experience that we have, because none of them have that responsibility in the same way that BGU has.
Thank you very much. We're just before turning it over to Mai and Topaz, we actually are getting questions already. And Sister Abigail Judah, who joins us regularly on our webinars, is asking a question about what the classes are going to look like in the fall. Could you just explain, Jeff, a little bit about what we know in terms of in-person classes, remote learning, online learning, etc.?
So thank you for the question, Sister Abigail. We are determined to open our campus, and again, it's kind of like a continuation of what I was saying. BGU cannot be a virtual university. We're not BGU without it. So opening our campus is our highest responsibility. And so what we're doing within Ministry of Health regulations is we've created what we're calling a hybrid campus, so that many of our students will be attending classes on a rotational basis in person. Inside, we're allowed as much as 10 students at a time, but then there'll be a video for the rest of the students, and those students who will be participating in Zoom will not be, we hope, not be sitting in their apartments or their dorms. There'll be corners in the campus where they'll be able to participate in their class, so that provides a little bit of more of community than Zoom classes would do so. And we have a whole lot of corners in the campus that we're creating for individual study as well. So we are determined to open the campus. By the way, there's a new idea that we're just looking into. One of the things, I think it's true in the United States and Canada as well, is there's now a realization that incidence of COVID is greatly increased in indoor space as opposed to an outdoor space. So we have in Beersheba, we have the advantage of having an incredible climate. You know, there may be 3 days of rain a year in the winter. So one of the things we're looking into is to have external classrooms where we would put up a covering for the sun, and then what's called a Madonna in Israel, which is if you've ever walked around the Machane Yehuda market with a guide, the guide has everybody has a headset, and then you only hear what's going on. So then we could have a lecturer standing in front of 20 students, because you're allowed 20 outside, running a class in corners undisturbed. So we're looking at all sorts of different ways to make sure that our campus is open, because without it, we really just don't have a university.
All right, thank you, Jeff. We're getting more questions and we'll come back to them, but let's switch to our students, because we've got two great panelists. So first, Mai Tannen, thank you for joining us. For those who recognize Mai's face, for those who were at last year's May Board of Governors meeting, they may have remembered her from some of the activities. And also she's the face on a lot of our social media efforts. So you're a celebrity worldwide. Thank you, Mai, for joining us. Also, don't forget to unmute your line. So Mai is a third-year student in politics and government. She was actually in Italy on student exchange when the pandemic began. She was supposed to return to Israel in March, but had to end her program abroad early. After a year of extensive travel, her world drastically changed. Mai's travel ended abruptly, and upon her return home to Israel, she had to go into quarantine for 14 days. All of Mai's connections on everything she was planning to do abroad were severed. She planned to start working in the field of international relations. During her IDF service, Mai worked in the Prime Minister's office. After that, she actually went to Detroit. We can talk a little bit more about that. You and Jeff have Detroit and Shlichut in common. So I assume you were an emissary for the Jewish Agency when you were there. We can talk about that. And you're completing your degree and would like to work in the field of international relations upon graduation. However, you're actually scared, quite frightened, that your employment opportunities and earning potential have been drastically diminished. So Mai, why don't you just share a little bit of your story with us?
So first of all, thank you for having me. I think this webinar is so important, and it's bringing awareness of my story to a broad amount of people, and also all of my friends and associates. So a little bit about myself. So the introduction was very accurate. So I came back from Italy on March 2nd, and I was one of the first people that went into quarantine. And when I finished my quarantine, I was in a very uncertain place. I didn't know what was going on in regards of how the studies are going to look like, how am I going to finish my degree, how am I going to leave Beersheba, that, as Jeff described, became my home. I'm originally from Ra'anana, so I had to move all of my stuff and start and build foundations here in Beersheba, and that's definitely what happened. And as you described it, at this point I'm looking for jobs, and it's very uncertain what's going to happen, and that's about it in a nutshell.
Now, you mentioned your family's from Ra'anana, yet you went to school in the South. Explain a little bit why you chose BGU.
So I'll have to go back a little bit in my story in order to tell that in a good way. So I finished my last year in the Army, and I had to decide what am I going to do with my life. I was 20 at that time, and I felt like I wasn't mature enough and ready to start school. And for that reason, I decided to go onto Ramah Camps movements. I worked at the Jewish Agency. I went and worked as a summer camp instructor at Camp Ramah in California. And after I finished my year there, I went on traveling in South America, came back to Israel, decided that I want to do it again. And I went to Camp Ramah for the second time, where I was in charge of all the Israeli crew. And by the time I finished it, I felt that it wasn't time to come back to Israel. And then I went on and worked for the Jewish Agency in Detroit. I worked for the Ramah movement, NRC. And when I came back to Israel, I felt like I want to go to a school which I can build the community, I can get the best education I can, and that I will feel that, I paused my educational growth for a long time. And if I'm going to pick a place and an institution, it has to be the best one. I came to Beersheba. I went to all kinds of all kinds of ceremonies and introductions of different schools. And I came to Beersheba, and I fell in love with the atmosphere that the campus has to offer. I remember after it all finished, I had some friends here who already started school, and I sat down with them, and I said, that's how I want to imagine my life for the next 3 years. I want to be with this people surrounding me. I want to go to this campus to get this education and to grow and to get a set of skill that I would find productive. So that it wasn't a hard decision. I know I want to go there. It was that easy.
Jeff mentioned this earlier. You were drawn to the residential nature of our campus. It's for our audience. BGU is really like the American style university that's in Israel, with a vibrant campus life, a strong social life, beautiful campus to walk, etc. Yeah, one of our questions actually from Luciano, who joins us regularly, has been asking, where do students live on campus? Do you live in a dorm, an apartment?
I wish I
Does the
could
university help you, or do you have to find the apartments?
switch my computer and show you where I live. So I live in Vav neighborhood. So essentially, Beersheba and Ben-Gurion campus is the heart of the city of Beersheba, and you will find that many students live around campus. So also you have different campuses surrounding Ben-Gurion University, Gimel campus, and also Dalet. But I live in an apartment. I am independent. I pay bills. I stepped into adulthood in a heartbeat. And I live 5 minutes away from campus. And I think that kind of like sums up what Beersheba is, because the campus is built in the center of Israel, and all around it you will see residential areas and also all kinds of different bars and restaurants who are especially directed to student life. And I think that also, if we go from Jeff's answer, I think that's what makes Beersheba unique for a lot of students, and that's the reason that many students are drawn to Beersheba.
Yeah, it's a college town. So there's no perfect analogy in the States. Sometimes I think of it as the relationship between the University of Michigan and Ann Arbor or something like that. But so in your case, you live in your own apartment, but in neighborhoods in Beersheba close to the university. And
exactly, and I think that and it's also mixed. So you will find that I live here, and we have some other students who are, studying different subjects. But you will also find residents of Beersheba, and also I think that is part of the reason that Beersheba is such a magnificent project, is that it brings all the native community, and also with the kind of like very young and vibrant community of the students. And it makes it into a special project of growth.
Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your story. And I assume when you went to Camp Ramah, you were a madricha, a counselor?
Yes, I was actually a dance instructor for my first time, and then on the second time I was rosh mishlachat for all of the Israeli crew.
And were you at Camp Ramah in Ojai, California?
Exactly. And I was actually there during Protective Edge. It was my first summer there on 2014. So it's a very special time.
You're talking to a former camper of Camp Ramah of Ojai, California.
Yay!
but I went there before you were born.
But we probably have mutual friends, so.
That's right. You can probably still see my name scratched somewhere in one of the buildings, but we won't talk about that.
On the benches, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Topaz, you're up next. So we're unmuting. So Topaz Warner, she's from Kfar Saba, or close to it. Also from kind of the center of the country. She's a third-year student in politics and government and communication studies. She began her studies at the age of 25, and she's financially independent, something that we're still working on in the Sesserman household. But she funds her BGU education all by herself and pays her living expenses by working 2 jobs while studying for her degree. She works in the office of BGU's spokesperson, as well as at the Defense Ministry. Topaz's concern her ability to afford her studies going forward and the economic uncertainty that the pandemic has created. Topaz, your video that's available on our website for participants, you can go back and learn about all kinds of great things on aabgu.org. There's a video of both Mai and Topaz there. Yours is quite compelling. So thank you for joining us, and just tell us your story.
Hi guys, so my name is Topaz. I'm 28 years old next week. I'm third year. Like Doug said, I started to learn in Beersheba when I was 25 years old. when I was officer in the army. So this is why in Beersheba I served in the South as a commander of logistics. And why Beersheba? I think Beersheba for me it's very very unique community and very very unique panoramic vision from all the others university. It's like what we imagine in the movie in the USA, the college party and all this, and we have this. Yeah, we have the spirit of the university. Not just we are learning, also we are going home. Like I say, we really feel the spirit every second and every minute and way we are going on. So it's very very unique for Beersheba. I love this. I love we learn together, we build together, we live together with other person we don't know before. My colleagues for the student, it's not a colleague for my apartment, but we all are students in PGU. We learn some subject, and it's very very close community, but close from we are close together and close each other, but we are very very huge community. So I love this. I love all the options that city and the Beersheba and the PTU give for me. I didn't think and I can imagine for me that learn in other place.
Tell us that was great. Tell us a little bit about being financially independent and
Okay.
even before the pandemic, like how you were juggling everything and your schoolwork.
It's very, very difficult for me. Before the pandemic, we built, because we have worked and we have worked with the learns, but the pandemic is very, very changed the world. For me, I'm closing the home, I work from home, I learn from home, everything is changed for me, everything confused for me. I don't know what the hour, I don't know what I have now, and everything is mess. And it's very, very not sure what's going on because I lost my job, one of them, because the university is closed, so I can't work. But I'm still living in the Beersheba because my parents in the middle, specific my father in the port in Jamaica, and the sky is closed until now in there. So the holiday is without my family, without my brothers, without my parents, and you need to buy fill the bills, and we need to the last year and the last semester of the students, and for me it's the last year, so I have a lot of work and a lot of projects, and the library is closed, so it's very very confused what we're gonna do and how we're gonna finish our graduating.
Well, we're here to help, and we're proud and privileged to do it. And with
Yes.
Danny's leadership and Jeff, the university has launched the Support Our Students Save the Class of COVID-19 campaign. It's a $6 million campaign to provide immediate financial support. We've raised over $3 million, close to $3.4 million worldwide. And in the United States, we're just shy of 2.5 million. And our goal is to get to 3 million, and we're going to get there. And thank you so much. One thing I also want to just thank the participants. This webinar, participants are growing as we're having it. Usually the number goes down after it starts. So you must be very engaged in texting your friends and family to join in. So Thank you to all the participants who have joined us. And if you have questions for Topaz, Mai, or Jeff, just click on the Q&A function and some of them are there, and we'll get to those in a little bit more. Topaz, just quickly back to you. And I know this is difficult. Just help us understand kind of your frame of mind as it relates to the future, both, you know, going back to school, but and then beyond that.
I finished the works now, and I'm going to the second degree. That's my future for now.
So you plan on getting a second degree, and
Yes.
then when is that at risk? I mean, how do you try to afford everything?
It's a risk, but I know that it's my dream, and that's what I want to do. So I will find the solution for this. And the university is very, very helpful from this. So I don't weigh the dreams.
Excellent. Please don't, you know.
I don't.
You're going to have a very bright future ahead of you. Jeff, let's go back to the campaign a little bit in terms of help the audience understand the shortfall. This is not an opportunistic campaign because there's a crisis and we're raising money and we think people will respond. There's a real shortfall in dollars facing the budget. If we don't raise additional resources, this generation of students is actually at risk. So could you just fill that in a little bit and help people understand also the different pressures between the undergraduates and the graduate students?
Right. Okay. So first of all, just to emphasize what you said, that this is what I call a triple whammy situation, because the university itself is undergoing severe budgetary cuts because the government, who pays some money towards the university, is cutting. At the same time, the university's investments based on endowments that we've reduced. So that's number two. And the third part of the triple whammy is this is the time when our students need us more than ever before. So that's why this is incredibly important. It's not about the university. The funds for this program are directly for students, and I think that that's an important one. It's not for the university's budget whatsoever. That's the first. And the second question, I guess, and I saw this a little bit about on some of the text messages, just to give you a very broad understanding of the costs. We surveyed our students as this was happening. We discovered that the average student to study year somewhere around $12,000 or $14,000 annual, which I know in comparison to tuition at U.S. universities doesn't seem a lot, but this is a country where there are no student loans. All of the students, without any exception, have to work while they're studying in order to pay their tuition, pay their rent. I think Mai said it beautifully when she said she became an instant adult. I think the rent, the rates, the food, the transport, everything like that. And so our students who are a little bit older, and don't forget they've come from the army, they have not been saving for 3 years. They've been getting essentially allowance, a stipend from the army, to pay for their transportation back and forward. So they haven't been saving, and basically go to university at that age where they need to be independent. Now, when in March, all of their jobs got ended automatically. So already in the last academic year, they were accruing debt because they still had to pay rent, they still had to pay utilities, etc. Although I think, as Danny explained to some of you, the university in its own dorms said, okay, we're going to allow students to go home and cancel their rent agreement with our dorms. And the university will cover that need. But those people who were living in rental apartments had no choice. They had to continue paying their rent and everything like that. So by June, students already had debts. They didn't have their jobs, and so that was already part of the problem. And the sort of jobs that students have in the university are all based on tourism and on the nightlife that Mai and Topaz talked about. And so the chance of them getting jobs next academic year are next to zero. So, and at the same time as them losing jobs, not having savings, having debt, then many of them, or many of us, know families where up until now there was maybe two people working in terms of parents, and then one or two of them have lost their jobs. And so even those students who have this issue, and I think Topaz and Mai said it beautifully in terms of this desire to be independent, even in the cases where a student says, you know what, I'll go for help to my parents, the parents can't help at this point. So it's a perfect storm that we're able to address. We're trying very hard to address.
Thank you, Jeff. We got a question, Topaz, actually for you. The second degree, was that something that was always in your plan? I think the way you were saying it was that you feel like you need that to be more employable. In other words, if you just finish with your first degree, that really won't be enough.
It was always my plan, not just from the employment, for my education and for myself. And I saw myself in the academic world not for all the rest of the life, but for long times.
Thank you. This could be a question for Topaz or Mai. This is from Alan Newman, who's one of our board members. He's asking, do the students at BGU know who we are, meaning the American Associates, that there's this group in the diaspora that cares about you and is raising resources for scholarship, or are you unaware of that as you are walking around?
Maybe I can answer that. I think that yes, for sure. First of all, you're doing a magnificent work of promoting that on social media, and I think a lot of students are seeing that. Also, I don't think that without your help and without the knowing where the sources of financial aid came from, will people be able to go to school. And I think that from that point on, people will definitely understand who is a BGU. And on top of that, I worked at the international office, part of the student union, and we worked closely with you. So from my perspective, I definitely know your help and your presence. And I think, you know, diaspora and Judaism and BGU is something that is inseparable. And for me, I can only speak for myself, but definitely I do know a BGU, and I have to say that I cherish your help and your presence and who you are and you're doing.
So that was amazing. Diaspora, Israel, and Judaism are inseparable. That could have been something Ben-Gurion himself would have said. But we're going to give it to Mai Tannen. That's amazing. How about you, Topaz? Did you have any idea that there's this group of Americans here in North America who care about you and are willing to raise money and give of their resources in the middle of this pandemic?
Yes. Absolutely yes. Like Mai said, we know each other and we heard about it. Me also work in the spokesperson office, so I work together. So it's very absolutely yes.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about the future. To the audience, I see more questions coming. I'll get to those in a second. Remember, to ask a question, just click on the Q&A function and we'll be able to get your question to one of the panelists. Let's talk about a little bit in the future, your career plans and life plans. I know it's a little early, but tell us what you want to do with the great education you're getting from Ben-Gurion University.
So maybe I can start. I'm taking a different path than Topaz, for example. So I decided not to pursue my master's degree. And, you know, the pandemic happened and I was found in a situation that I don't know what my near future and my, you know, long future is going to be like and how it's going to be shaped by the coronavirus pandemic. For me, I'm really interested in the international arena. I'm interested either in going to the UN or either to to the European Union. But for the time being, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I feel like Ben-Gurion University, the different jobs that I did throughout the years here at BGU really helped me into shaping who I want to be and the employee that I'm gonna be. But I don't think that in the process of really finding any job, it's not relevant anymore. I feel like the tools that was given to me are not, you know, building into something that is coherent. And I'm gonna finish my rental in, I think, yeah, in 30 days, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's a really bizarre situation that I never thought I would be in. And it's devastating. I don't even know, I feel like I don't even know how to put it in words, the emotions and the feeling that I'm feeling, because I know who I am and I know what I can give and how I can contribute society and how I can, you know, represent BGU as an alumni in the best way possible. But I don't think that the work employment arena are just, they don't have anything to offer right now. So I'm left with all the desire, but without any ability to fulfill it.
Wow. So Jeff, did you want to say something about that? You're out, you need to unmute.
No, the only thing that I had in my mind is I don't want to lose Mai to the United States of Canada. I want to keep her in Israel. Talk about brain drain. And, you know, we're not allowed to get political, are we, Doug? So, but I'll just say to you that in these days, and sometimes when we look at our leadership and we yearn for the days of David Ben-Gurion, then I'm encouraged by the Mais and the Topazs who will take their place in the future. So stay here.
And if for some reason you don't, I think, you know, you can friend me on Facebook and send me a message, or I'll give you my mobile number. You're going to have gainful employment. Don't worry about that. We're going to get through this too shall pass. And you both have terrific education and skill, and in the area of politics and government and human relations, there's a lot of work to do. So I know it's difficult, but stay confident as you already are. Topaz, a little bit about what you plan to do in the future after your second degree.
Yes. First, I'm going to start my second degree in October. But about the job, because the second degree is very, very different from first degree. It's not all the week, it's just 2 times in the week. And so I'm confused about what I'm going to do. I have some offers, but it's very, very confused and very, very risky, because most of the works that good works in the center. So I don't know how I'm going to Beersheba and back. So it's very, very confused for me. And like I finished my rent in the end of the month. So it is holiday, so I'm going back to my parents, and then I will decide what I'm going to do. So it's very, very confused. It's pandemic, and the coronavirus, it's not much better, and it's not good for the situation from the beginning, just more difficult. I hope it's for good. I don't really know what I'm going to do. Maybe 1 month I will do. Maybe.
Well, thank you for being so honest. It's almost like a form of PTSD that we're all experiencing, whether have a job or in our college student. You just have so much added uncertainty, and then the overall economic situation in Israel is difficult.
Yeah, it's
We're
difficult.
going to get through it. We're going to get through it together. We did get one question. I'll come back to you. We got one question that's a Canadian joining the American audience. It's an anonymous participant. First of all, Canadians are welcome. Thank you for joining us. And the question is, can they make a donation and support the campaign somehow? And the answer to that is yes. You can go to www.Ben-Gurion-ca or just find Mark Mendelson. He's my colleague in Canada. And for those in the States who would like to donate to this campaign, we've had incredible support already, but you can text if you'd like, get a pen or pencil and paper, if you don't just live completely digitally these days. And the number is 646-791-1918. You just text SOS to 646-791-1918. It's the campaign Support Our Students, the SOS campaign. Just text to 646-791-1918. You can also go to our website at the American Associates Ben-Gurion University, which is www.aabgu.org/donate-SOS. aabgu.org/donate-SOS. We're starting to run out of time, although we have a few minutes left. I wanted to make sure that each of you had an opportunity to provide a closing remark or comment. And before doing that, I just want to check our questions. Al Newman, by the way, says, thank you very much. This feels like family. Thank you, Alan. Sister Abigail is really pleased with her answer. Phyllis Bernstein is asking more questions about classes and the situation about, is there risk of closing campus? Jeff, I think you addressed this earlier, but could you just one more time explain to Phyllis and the audience what it looks like based on what we know right now in terms of the fall?
Right. So thank you, Phyllis, and thank you for the question. We at the university, we are subject to Ministry of Health regulations. So if Israel was to decide that we were going to lock down, then that would be binding on us as well. Notwithstanding that extreme move, Ben-Gurion campus will be open because we're going to do whatever we can creatively to make sure that our campus is open, albeit within social distancing and taking all the precautions that we need already. For the last few months out there, you do not see a single person anywhere in the campus ever without a face mask. But that's just one of the things. And you walk into an elevator or to go towards an elevator, there's alcohol gel there. So we're very, very careful, and we've got very serious people looking into everything. But the answer is we will do absolutely whatever we can to make sure our campus is open, because that's our DNA.
Thank you. So I'm going to give you an opportunity for one more. That was a great closing, but you can have one more if you'd like. But let's, Mai or Topaz, do you have a closing comment for the audience?
I think just continue support and continue help. It will change so many lives, and it will have a tremendous effect on people and their education and their starting point in life. Here in Israel, if you don't have a first degree, you're a BA, that means that doors are shut into the work employment world. And I think many, many students come to BGU to have more opportunities in life. And I just hope for my future fellows that, the doors won't shut because they won't have the financial aid in this whole crazy, crazy time. So just help us. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Topaz?
And just to thank you. It's very not clear and very not known from these days. We are very appreciators.
Thank you. Jeff, final words from you.
We will all be back, whether it's a year or 2 years or 4 years. We'll be celebrating BGU's first Nobel Prize laureate. We will get there, I promise you. We will build our northern campus. We will launch our strategic plan and do everything that we have intended to, because our next 50 years is going to be absolutely incredible. In order to get there, we have to take care of this year. And I think Alan said it beautifully. We are family. I think Topaz and Mai are incredible members of our family, as is Doug and all of the people on the AABGU staff and those people on the call. This unity that we're able to show in this call is why we're going to get through this year and why we're going to get to our next 50 years as an incredible university that we'll all be very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. We've had a great conversation. For those who are participating would like to help, you can text, again, SOS to 646-791-1918, or go directly to our website at aabgu.org/donate-SOS. And for those who haven't had enough, we have a really great webinar coming up with BGU alum, Dr. Tal Zaks, who did his undergraduate work and he has his MD from the Goldman Medical School, which is a 6-year program, as well as his PhD in immunology from BGU. And he's currently the Chief Medical Officer of Moderna, which is a biotech company located in Boston that has one of the most promising potential vaccines for COVID-19. We're going to have an exclusive webinar with Dr. Tal Zaks on August 11th, which is a Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. So please join us for that. We're really proud of their work and especially proud to call Tal an alum of BGU. So with that, we're going to wrap up, although our questions are booming. Let me just take a quick peek at our questions. People had to wait until the very end. Most of them are just saying thank you. Thank you. Thank you for a great webinar. Sister Abigail wants the mailing address for sending donations. So we will get that to you, Sister Abigail. It's 1001 Avenue of Americas, 19th floor, New York, New York, 10018. 1001 Avenue of the Americas, 19th floor, 10018. Easiest way is just to text to 646-791-1918 or go directly to our website. So with this, I want to thank all of our panelists, Mai, Topaz, and my great colleague, Jeff, and BGU's president, Danny Shamovitz, for his appearance on this webinar. This is really important work, and it's our honor and privilege to do it for your behalf and with you. David Ben-Gurion, the founder of Israel and its first prime minister, and I call the #2 Jew all time, had some great sayings. And one of his was that it is in the Negev that the creativity and pioneering spirit of Israel will be tested. And I think this is one of those times where our pioneering spirit does need to still be there, is still there, and creatively we have to respond with new efforts to help support the students and a new way to think and approach our education and our career. And I'm so proud of Topaz and Mai for your mindset as it relates to the reality of what we're in, but also I think it gives us the inspiration of the great things that are going to come into the future. So thank you all for joining us. Continue to be safe and stay healthy. Happy Topaz.